As some of you may know, I was born with multiple holes in my heart and a condition called dextrocardia. As an infant, I underwent a lot of treatment, including 2 open heart surgeries. The results of which are that I contain pieces of a material called Gore-Tex, and that my heart is here? Those surgeries, as well as all the pre- and post-treatment, were conducted at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital, which is operated by the NHS, the National Health Service. In the UK, the NHS is our public, government-subsidised healthcare service that was created in the late 40s by a Labour government as a response to several pieces of legislation. Because of the NHS, some of the best doctors in their field operated on me as a baby, saving my life, and my parents didn't have to pay them anything. I owe my life to Great Ormond Street Hospital and this country's healthcare system. So when a guy called Max tagged me to do his NHS tag, I was all for it. I'll link to his original video in the down, but basically the NHS tag is about raising awareness of the amount of money that is spent on you and me as recipients of NHS healthcare. So I did some digging. It's actually remarkably hard to come up with solid numbers for a lot of things, especially when they happened 20 odd years ago. But based on what I have, I've come up with a rough figure for how much it has cost so far to keep me alive. So let's start with the basic stuff. Everyone has a GP, more or less, and several times a year, on average, you will go to them with aches and pains or headaches or asking for prescriptions. I know that I've been to my GP probably more times on average in the last couple of years than I should have. Sometimes for things that turned out to be nothing, sometimes I was only in the office for 5 minutes, but that costs money. As a 25-year-old man who for most of his life has been to the GP an average of 5 or 6 times a year, based on average wages and upkeep cost for surgeries, that's costing about £1,200 a year. That's a little high. I mean, there'll be years where I didn't really go to the GP, and there'll be years where I went more. Let's make it an even 1,000. Then let's times that 1,000 by 25. That's £25,000. Then we have more specific costs. Let's go from the beginning. I was born. The price tag on having a baby in a hospital with no complications whatsoever starts at around £2,500 and goes up to over £5,000 if there are complications. Of course, there were complications because I had to be difficult. So let's just add that on. My mum got cleaned up and turfed out, but I started taking up a bit. And while they were figuring out what was wrong with me and then trying to treat it, I will have had all kinds of scans. The starting cost of one ECG, for example, is £160. MRIs start at about £130. I will have had several of those, X-rays, and other kinds of tests as a child, and ongoing throughout my life. Hell, this month I'm going into a hospital so that they can stick a audio recorder to my chest and measure my heartbeat. I'm going to walk around with an expensive piece of gear attached to me for 24 hours. And then lab specialists are going to take the information, print it out on expensive paper, have a look at it, think about it, and all of that will cost hundreds of pounds. I have definitely had 20 or 30 of these various scans and tests performed in my lifetime. And at an average cost of even £150, that becomes £4,500. Now let's talk about specific processes. It was difficult to track down costs for infant heart surgery, so I'm assuming that all of these numbers are quite low. The kind of invasive, risky heart surgery that was performed on me twice has an average cost of between £8,000 and £10,000. And again, this is conservative, because I'm pretty sure it's more time-consuming and more fiddly and more expensive to work on a little baby chest. But just for the sake of argument, let's add 2 basic bargain bucket heart surgeries to our bill for a total of £17,000. And just for fun, let's tack on basic rates for follow-up examinations that I've had throughout my life, and little bits here and there for medication that I've been prescribed over the years. All totaled, and again, this is super conservative and probably way lower than the actual cost. The NHS has spent to date £55,000 keeping this human alive. I couldn't possibly live long enough to pay back what has been spent on me in tax. And that's important. There is a lot of debate that surrounds the NHS, and no matter where you are along the spectrum, it's important to discuss and understand the costs involved. And that's what the NHS tag is about. I invite you to use the links in the down to figure out roughly how much money has been spent keeping you alive. Some of you will be like me and your figures will be cartoonishly large, but for others who don't have congenital or long-term conditions, you may still be surprised at just how much it costs. I'd like to see videos from all of you on this subject, but I am particularly tagging Jazza, rhyming with oranges, Just Kiss My Frog, and Jack Howard, mainly because I want to collect medical information on him for my own secret purposes. That's about it. Let's talk about healthcare in the comments.